Well, I want to take just a quick second to express on behalf of the school district in Fraser our appreciation for you making the trip over here to have this conversation with us today. As we talked and prepared for today, our staff was just so fired up about getting a group of educators together who are like-minded, who believe in this need to redesign where we're going in public schools and in our classrooms in particular. So thank you first and foremost for being here and being a part of this conversation. The second part, I really want to encourage you today to consider how this type of learning, this mode of offering instruction, is going to create the opportunity for us to personalize instruction for every kid. You know and I know that technology and software has finally matured to the time and place that we can do that. We can finally differentiate or make learning possible where every kid is at. That's extremely important. But the real power and the real magic of today will come from being an active participant in your sessions. I know many of you have already gone into this area. You've already jumped into the blended learning or online learning. You have a lot to offer, just like our staff has a lot to offer. I hope that you'll feel very comfortable finding your voice in the sessions and being interactive with the speakers and sharing email addresses and developing your own professional network so that you can connect with our teachers and they can connect with you, because there's so much we can learn from one another. And so really just want to say thank you for first and foremost being here and being a part of this, but also I hope that it's as beneficial for you as we know it's going to be for us to learn from you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the two gentlemen that are behind this initiative at the high school and have been a driving force. The first is our high school principal, Dr. Michael Lons. He's been with us for a couple of years and has made a huge impact on our school district. And the second is Mr. Luke Woods, who is our Director of Online Learning and is a driving force with our teaching staff to implement these programs. So thank you and welcome, and we're just looking forward to a great day with you.
Thanks, Tom.
Absolutely.
Good morning. When we were thinking about where we're going to stand today, Luke asked me, are you going to be on the stage? I said, I have to. You might not be able to see me if I'm down on the floor. So if you can't see me, let me know. I'll work with that. When we started talking about online hybrid learning, we talked about this thing called 21st century skills. And if you start researching the 21st century skills, you see things like critical thinking, collaboration, communication, creativity. And then I kind of thought for a second, and I said, when weren't those the skills that we wanted our kids to learn? Was it just today we decided we wanted our students to be creative, collaborative? I don't think so. I think those skills have always been universal for what we were looking for our students to get out of every day that they come to school. And so I thought a little bit more about what is hybrid learning? What is online learning? It's really just a tool that we're using to help us make this better for our students. It's a tool. It's not the be-all, end-all. It's not a magic bullet. It's not going to solve all of our world's problems. What it is the next evolution. So I thought it'd be fun just to go back in time just for a second here, and we look at one of the first tools that were used to help increase student learning, right? We used the abacus to help students better with math. Then we had these things called books. Those were great. Some of you may have seen the YouTube video where the guy's trying to figure out how to use a book, and he has the iPad right next to him. I thought that was pretty funny. Then, of course, we had this great blackboard, and I can solve that equation for you. If you'd like to see me later, I can do that for you. Then we evolved to this nice whiteboard thing, which is really cool, because I remember schools investing a lot of money taking down blackboards, putting up whiteboards, because that was going to be the next transition to really solve the world's problems. And then we had this great thing, the computer. And I still remember back in high school, I had the Commodore 12864. You could flip it back and forth. I have no idea what I ever did with that, but it was really cool to have it. And then we had these really great things, the interactive whiteboards, the Promethean boards, the smart boards. You can go up there and you can actually manipulate data. So again, a tool to help transform that learning process. And then we have this little thing called the iPad. And I know that all of you have seen the tablets and all that great stuff, and many of you probably have them yourselves. And if you have them today or any technology today, please feel free to get it out. We have a wireless system that you can log on to our guest wireless. It wouldn't be rude. That's part of what we're talking about today. Yeah.
We can't get in.
You can't get in. Mr. Glenn will help you out with that. So he's going to come down here and help you out as we keep talking, so that'll be fine. With my children, I happen to have 3 children. We have the Zoom, which is like the Droid-based tablet, and the iPad at home. and my first grader was going through the iPad, doing a couple things, and I was on my laptop, and you may have had the same experience with your children or perhaps kids in school, and he came up to the laptop and started punching the screen. I'm like, what are you doing? No, it's not that. But if you think about it, that's how the kids of that age are experiencing life now. Their life is swipe and drag. If you're a clicker, that kind of defines how your technology is, either old or how old you are yourself, because that's not where we are anymore. And so that finally got us to this point of hybrid courses and why we looked into the online and how we could take the best of what's out there and help make it our own. At this point, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Woods to walk you through the process and give you a little bit of history.
Thank you. Well, as Dr. Richards and Dr. Lons have already said, we'd like to thank you for coming out today and hearing what we have to say and how we went through our process. And I'm going to start by just simply defining two different types of online learning. So the one that we do a lot of is hybrid. And in hybrid, you have a combination of face-to-face time where you see your students in the classroom, and you have online time. And during the online time, they are responsible for doing their own work and figuring out, how to budget their time. And so you have that nice even split, a type of blended learning where you're seeing them at times, and at times they're working on their own. And then we have virtual, which is 100% online. So if I have a virtual course, I never have to see my students face-to-face. Everything is done 100% online. So some objectives that we went through as we were starting to develop our program. We wanted a program that would provide students with alternative learning options, challenge teaching staff to develop new ways of delivering instruction, challenge students to develop new ways to learn, challenge staff and students to transform as teachers and learners, maintain a viable school program, and provide students with the best learning opportunities. These were just some key things that we identified early on. This is what we want our program to do. And so far, I think we've been pretty successful in maintaining these basic ideas. One of the things that a lot of districts talk about and a lot of things that we discussed early on was canned courses. And canned courses are things like, the Florida virtual courses that some of you have probably had a chance to see, some of the things that come out of Michigan virtual, all those different things that you can purchase online and implement and use. One canned course would be E2020, which I think everyone in the county is familiar with. And so why didn't we go with canned courses? We chose to create our own stuff because we felt that by creating our own courses, we were maintaining the rigor, the curriculum, and the overall experience that our students get face-to-face, but we were doing it in a hybrid environment, in the online setting. And this was a very important idea, not just to our teachers, but also to our administrators and our community. So that was the first thing that we all agreed on was we want to do it our way. We don't want to buy something from someone else that we'll try to implement. We want it to be our curriculum, taught by our teachers, developed by our teachers, implemented by our teachers. So how did we do it? We had a 3-year plan starting with the 2010-2011 school year. That was our pilot year. We spent the first half of the year getting ready, and then we implemented second semester. And the whole idea started with a group of about 5 of us that were part of the My Champions program through McCall. And we went to Grand Rapids for the McCall conference, went to all sorts of conferences and sessions dealing with online learning. And when we came home, we said to our principal, this is something we need to do. And his response was, great, get started, let me know how I can help. And he basically just sat back and let us run with it. And so everything that we did was created, designed, troubleshot, everything by the teachers, with administrative support, obviously, but they didn't try to get in our way. They didn't try to ask us a lot of questions. They let us run with it and ask questions as they needed to. So we had 4 courses in our pilot program: AP US History, Astronomy, English 11, Performing Arts Academy, and Life Management Skills. These 4 courses were chosen simply because these were the 4 teachers who volunteered to be a part of the pilot. We had approximately 100 students in our pilot. Now, it's worth mentioning with our pilot students, they did not choose the hybrid format. These were the 4 classes that we as a staff chose, that our principal supported us in, and the students were just thrown in. Of the 100 students that were originally registered for those traditional face-to-face courses, only 2 of them got polled after we had a meeting with all the parents explaining what the course was going to become. So we had 98 students go through it in the pilot, and again, they had no idea what they were getting into. We didn't fully know what we were getting into with them, and it was a lot of fun for those of us that were involved in it. For 2011-2012, this school year, we doubled the number of courses being offered from the pilot. We have AP US History again, Astronomy, Econ, English 12, Health Science and Technology. We have 2 sections of that course. English 12, Performing Arts, English 12, 21st Century Media Literature, Life Management Skills, and Surviving After High School. And you can see that we've got 3 different versions of English 12 there. For those of you who are English teachers or going to the English sessions, you'll hear about all those different versions. They're going to talk about that a little bit. We have 8 teachers teaching hybrid this year. And with those 8 teachers, we had approximately 300 students across the 2 semesters. Now, that number is a little inflated because we're looking at total number of students first semester plus total number of students second semester. Some of those are the same kids. So we had a total of 300 students across the 2 semesters. And we also, had 3 additional courses that were developed but didn't have enough students registered to actually run them. And that was Comparative Anatomy, Contemporary Issues, and the 4th version of our English 12. For next school year, we have tripled the number of hybrid courses that are being developed. We have 20 hybrid options, 8 that are year-long courses, and 12 that are one-semester courses. And we're offering 6 hybrid-only choices. So with these hybrid-only choices, there is no traditional face-to-face class. It is just the hybrid option. 4 of them are year-long courses, and 2 of them are one-semester courses. And then we're also developing 7 virtual courses, 2 that are year-long and 5 that are just one semester. And here's the list of what all those courses are. And this presentation is posted on the district website, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through all this, but you'll have a chance to look at that as you move forward through the day. We have 35 teachers trained and working in the hybrid program now. Those 35 teachers are working together to develop all the courses that you just saw on that last slide. Several are people who are teaching it again, that are teaching it this year, are going to be teaching again next year in the hybrid format. And we have about 20 new staff members who have never taught in the hybrid format before that are joining us for next year. And we have approximately 400 students that want hybrid courses for next year. And is that for the whole year, across the 2 semesters. So that's how we got to where we're at. Dr. Lanz is going to go through some of our data with you from our pilot year and from our first semester this year.
Thank you. Just to reiterate what Mr. Wood said, I see a lot of you taking notes, and if that's how you process, that's great. But all the presentations that you see today from the breakouts plus this morning's session is on our district website or will be shortly after today. So you don't need to write this down if you don't want to. But if that's how you process, feel free. I'm a data guy. I love data. And the question we had was, if we switch this hybrid format, are students still learning the material that we want them to learn? Well, how do you really measure learning? And we can get into a nice 3-day discussion on that. For today, we're going to say we measured learning based on their final grade in the class. So we compared final grades of hybrid students versus final grades of brick and mortar or face-to-face students. Now, I didn't run a z-score. I didn't do all this technical analysis. I kind of looked at the face of it and said, yep, this makes sense to me. If you want the actual data, we can run that through for you, but you could trust me and just say that this is the data and that you'll see the same thing that I'm seeing and maybe come to the same conclusion. What we're seeing in the first pilot is that these are the number of students here, and I apologize on the screen has cut that off, but here are the grade distributions that we have. So in the blue is the hybrid students' grades, and in the red is the face-to-face. Now remember, these are students that didn't choose to be in the hybrid, right? Our pilot year, we, I guess, coerced them into being into it. So this was a no choice, and I look at the grade distribution. I see it relatively the same. We had a few more Fs on that side and a few more Bs on this side, but I would say all in all relatively the same. The FC, just so you know what that is, in our district, that's an attendance function. So if you missed too many courses, put on a contract, violated that, you received an F, but you received credit for the course. Okay, so the FCs, they still receive credit, but because of attendance, they lost their grade. In our AP US History, you can see again, I'd say relatively even distribution, perhaps a little bit on the high side when you look at the B- range. And then here's our astronomy. We had a few more Fs on that, and then everything else kind of leveled out. C+, obviously some more than in the face-to-face. And that was the pilot year. Now, some of these numbers are relatively low, probably compared to some of the classes that you're running. That was a decision that we made with the support of central office and our school board. That this is, and I should back up a second, if you want to go to hybrid learning, at least the way that we're functioning, if you're doing that in an effort to save money or to reduce teaching staff, you're at the wrong conference, because that won't happen under this system. It's not a money saver. You don't reduce any staff. I'm sure as you talk to the teachers in the breakout sessions, they're going to tell you all the hours and effort and the extra work that they've done. This is a position that you have to take because you're passionate about it, and you believe at your core that this is the direction you want to go to help educate your students. So some of our numbers here are going to be a little bit lower than what you would see, and that bumped up some of our other numbers. And that was a decision that we made so that we could continue this process and help get our students used to it. As maybe in some of your schools, this was the first opportunity our students have ever had at doing a hybrid course. And so for some of them, there was that jumping in feel that you have to get, you just have to take that risk. And so we made that challenge to them, and they did that. Now what we're looking at are percentages, because our ends are different. Again, in the hybrid course for economics, we ran 12 students. In the face-to-face, we ran 280. So to do a numbers-to-numbers comparison wouldn't make sense. That's why this is in percentages. And I would say it's relatively even distribution there as far as student achievement goes based on final grades. AP US History, 17 and 28, a little bit closer to the same ends. Again, I would say relatively equal, give or take, here or there. Our 21st century media literature, 26 and 68. Again, relatively the same, I would say. Our health and science in English, this is our closest comparison, 51 to 57. These are students, as a reminder, that chose to go into these hybrid courses now. So they made that choice, the parents supported it, this is where they wanted to be. And I would say, again, relatively even, maybe a little bit more on the high side when it comes to the Bs. Now, everyone knows that when you make a choice and you're doing statistical research, that if you're making that choice and you're making a positive choice to do something, that can skew the data a little bit. So that could be part of this. I think the kids would have been relatively the same grade-wise, whether they would have been in face-to-face or in hybrid, based on everything that we've seen so far. And now I'm going to give it back to Luke for a minute to talk about what platform we use to deliver our hybrid instruction.
Thank you. All right, so what does it look like for us? We use Blackboard as our content delivery system because that's what we have available to us in Macomb County. Our ISD supports Blackboard. They house everything on their servers, so it's not eating up any space on our servers. And so it was free to us as part of the package of services they offer. And so that was what we went with. Again, if your county has Blackboard and that's what you guys use, great, use it. If you have Moodle, use that. If you have some other platform that your district is comfortable with and supports and uses, it's all the same. It's not the system, it's just where you're storing your information as you share that content out to your students. And so whatever platform is going to work for your school is just fine. For us, it was Blackboard because that's what we had easy access to, and you're going to get to see what our Blackboard sites look like at the breakout sessions a little bit later today.
That concludes kind of the background history of where we got to where we are today. There's a few things that I'd like us to touch base on, and that's that we did this change with computers that where's Mrs. Young? What are average age computers, 8 years, 6 years old? So we didn't have any new technology to do this. This was current technology that we did. We didn't invest any additional monies other than making choices of how we allocated staffing. Our staff were paid exactly the same that they were paid to start with. There was no change in that. This was a commitment that we made as a district with no new investment of money to make this happen. So that wasn't a barrier for us. We have 5 computer labs, 1,700 students. I imagine your ratio is probably about the same. Our teachers fight over those computer labs left and right, just like I'm sure that you guys do. And that was our challenge. And moving forward, we have some great opportunities coming to us that we're going to have a lot of new technology coming in. We're going to be able to change how we educate students, and you'll hear about some of that in your breakout sessions. But money can't be the barrier for doing this. Not having staff buy-in could be a barrier. Not having community support could be a barrier. Not willing to go down a road and take a risk could be a barrier. But those are all things that are relatively under control as far as the building goes. I'll be honest with you that when I first came to this building, this wasn't my vision at all of how we educate students. I was educated my first year in that this is the direction we need to go, and that was because of the passionate teachers that we had and that they wanted to do things differently, and they wanted to give our students a different or better product. So for me, I've been walking down this road for around a year and a half now, and it's been a very eye-opening experience for me. I hope that as you go through today, you'll see some of those same experiences that I went through, because the teachers you'll be with are extremely passionate about this, very dedicated, and very talented in what they do. You'll hear throughout the day the bells are ringing. Just as a housekeeping note, we do have school in session, so 1,700 of our wonderful students will be moving around today. It also is a seminar day, so there's a little bit less structure for about an hour, so we're going to help move the students where they need to be. Hopefully you won't be too distracting as you go to your sessions. We'll also have students available when we dismiss from here to help get you to the rooms that you need to go to. At this point, I would like to bring up our Assistant Superintendent, Ms. Carrie Wozniak. Ms. Wozniak will be introducing our keynote speaker, Steve Dembo. Thank you. All right, brother. He's going to introduce you right now. If you want to step out and start setting up, you can do that.
Good morning. Thank you guys for being here. I'm very excited that I have the opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker today, Mr. Steve Dembo. He's a former kindergarten teacher and director of technology. And Steve Dembo is really a pioneer in the field of educational social networking. He currently serves as the Discovery's Education Director of Social Media Strategy and Online Community. Mr. Dembo was among the first educators to realize the power of blogging, podcasting, Twitter, and other Web 2.0 technologies in connecting educators and creating professional learning communities. He has been instrumental in the explosive growth of the Discovery Education Network and its online presence, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Just to give you a little bit of background of some of his awards, in 2010, the National School Board Association named Dembo one of the 20 to watch, a list honoring individuals finding innovative ways to use technology to increase classroom learning. He was named one of the top 100 edubloggers by the Online Education Database in 2006. That same year, the Discovery Educator Network, DEN website, which was created and is managed by Dembo, was honored with an award of excellence from Technology and Learning magazine. In addition to demonstrating continued innovation in serving Discovery Education's online community, Dembo continues to be a prolific web writer whose personal blog and companion podcast, Tech 42, has served as inspiration for tens of thousands of educators across the world. I think you'll find Mr. Dembo to be a dynamic speaker who's going to talk today about social networking, the power of educational technologies, and Web 2.0 tools, and more importantly, the ability of digital content to empower teachers to improve student achievement. He is a perfect keynote speaker to really kick off the work that we're going to be talking about today, and I'm so honored that he is here to speak to all of us. So can we please give him a warm welcome? Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. So that was quite an introduction. Now I feel like I got something to live up to. That's a lot of pressure. How are all of you? Excellent. So this is a presentation called Learning to Speak Native. It's kind of something I put together a little while ago. Some of you may have seen some pieces of it from McCall. Hopefully, if you've seen some of it before, there's also some new things that you haven't seen, because to be honest, it's constantly shifting. While I was just backstage, and I hate to say this, I was kind of multitasking. I wasn't just listening to every single word, and browsing through Twitter, and I found about 3 things that I'm adding to the presentation. When they come up, hopefully, it'll just look seamless to you, but they'll be added in the last minute because things are shifting at this incredibly rapid rate, and there's a lot to share. There's a lot to share. All right, so let's start off right here. There's a question I want you to think about in the back of your head. We're going to come back to this before the end. Is there any music inside a piano? Just mull on that one. We're going to come back to it. Now, I always like to start off just giving you a little bit of background about myself, how I got to where I am and why I'm here in front of you today. I started off as a kindergarten teacher. Yes, that is what I looked like when I was teaching kindergarten. I was that guy. I wore a pink ponytail holder more often than not in the back of my hair just because it made the kids very uncomfortable and allowed us to kind of question, sexual stereotyping and all that kind of stuff. So from there, I wound up becoming the director of technology, and I started my own blog and my own podcast, teach42.com, which I still update sporadically. Now I spend more time really on Facebook and on Twitter and a few other places as well. And from there, I wound up getting picked up by Discovery Education. That's actually one of the reasons why I started presenting, was to kind of share that story as well, because the only way that I got hired by Discovery Education is because they found me. I didn't really apply for the job. They were looking for someone to manage their online community, their new community called the Discovery Educator Network. They wanted someone to kind of manage the online aspects of it, blogging, podcasting, all that other kind of stuff. And they found me through my own blog and my own podcast and said, this sounds about right to us. We'd be interested in seeing whether you're a good fit. Then I had about 6 interviews with them, and I'm not jesting about that. It was about 6 interviews, including one of them. I was actually on the way to school, on the phone, doing a phone interview with somebody, when he started actually asking me questions about things that, I'll be honest, I wasn't necessarily prepared to answer. Things that I talked about in my podcasts. Now, have any of you ever actually listened to one of my podcasts? Okay, you would have to be really old school, because I haven't done them for a while. But my podcasts were originally done on the I-94 between my home and school. And I actually didn't have an iPod or a voice recorder or anything at the time. I had my digital camera that just happened to have a microphone built into it so you could record voice into it. So I would actually just hold my digital camera and talk into it, and that was my podcast. And the running joke of it was I actually needed a new axle on my car, so it rattled horribly. And everyone could hear that on my podcast, and everyone kept leaving comments like, hey, I really enjoyed your podcast, love that you talked about Flickr, by the way, go fix your car, that kind of stuff. So anyway, but I did it, and at the time I had probably, I would say maybe 100 people listening, and that was more than enough for me. I was pretty happy with that. But what I kind of forgot about, or at least I wasn't really thinking about at the time, was the fact that these things are going to be around and are going to live essentially forever. Essentially forever. And so when I was interviewing at Discovery, one of my, he's now my boss's boss, Scott Kinney, he actually pulled out one of these podcasts where I'm just rambling while stuck in the highway, a lot of times in the rain. Yes, I know, hands on free and all that, those safety laws. I would just kind of ramble in the car about my thoughts about education and the problems that we're experiencing and things that we're seeing. And he called me out on one of the times in my podcast where I kind of slammed big business and be saying that they don't necessarily have education's interest in heart, and really it's going to be almost impossible for a larger company to do what's right for teachers when they're more focused on the bottom line. And all of a sudden he's quoting me, and I nearly ran off the road, because I was not anticipating to have to defend myself, and those comments and so on. But the fact is that is sort of, that permanent record. This becomes a part of it. Now, in all honesty, I was able to kind of defend it because I really do feel like if the company has education in mind at first, which it turns out Discovery does, then I can feel good about working for a company. But it's that kind of thing that, it's a big switch. Those things that you just kind of do off the cuff, those conversations that you have that are just, that you're not necessarily planning on being a full part of your identity in the long term. Well, nowadays, anytime that stuff is getting posted online, it really is. And that's the kind of the mentality that we've got to be training our students to be thinking about. It's something that I focus in quite a bit now, because I also teach, we have a partnership with Wilkes University. So I created a course called Internet Tools for Teachers, which is kind of a newbie sort of online course. It's part of our master's degree program. But it's not hybrid at all. It is 100% virtual. And with those students, a lot of what we talk about, it's only a 7-week class, so we really pack it in. But a lot of it is just kind of opening eyes to the new way that we need to interact with information and the new way that we need to represent ourselves online. Because having no identity online is almost as bad as having a bad identity online. I say almost as bad. So the whole title of the presentation is Learning to Speak Native. It's an allusion to Mark Prensky and this whole digital natives, digital immigrants paper that he wrote about 10 years ago, maybe 13 years ago at this point. I'm assuming most of you have heard of it, right? Yeah, most of you are probably sick of it at this point, right? The whole idea is, people born before the computer generation were digital immigrants. People born after the computer generation are digital natives. The digital natives you assign different characteristics to. You can see what all these things are and so on. And if you need the visual aid, there's your visual aid, a tribe of natives in their native habitat. The rest of us, we, that are digital immigrants and all that we can still use technology. We can still be good at it. We're just still going to talk with this cute little digital accent. We'll say things like, if I'm not home tonight, I need to remember to tape American Idol. Exactly. Hasn't been taped in it for a long time. And we've all got some story. I mean, honestly, right now, I have a 5-year-old at home. He's a great prop for these presentations. You'll see him quite a bit. I am having a heck of a time trying to explain to him what live TV is. He has he does not get it. I'm like, no, we can't watch that because it's not on. And he goes, what is this on? You have the remote, there is the TV, make it happen. You know what I mean? He also doesn't understand why sometimes we actually start a show in the middle. He's like, no, go back to the beginning. I'm like, I can't because we just turned it on. He's like, no. He doesn't grasp that at all. Well, the worst part is going to a hotel. Going to a hotel, flipping through 60 channels, finding no cartoons, and saying we're just going to turn off the TV because there is no kids content. And he just looks at me like I'm absolutely insane because he doesn't get what live TV is at all, which is kind of interesting considering that I work for a cable company too. Anyway, so with all that in mind, where do these kinds of things fit in? Now, I couldn't tell who was speaking at the time, but somebody was referring, I think it might have been Michael, was referring to the video of these two monks interacting with the book. I actually have that video, because I really do think it's kind of a nice way to kind of start off and frame this conversation. So I got a little series of actually 3 videos that we're going to play, assuming I can figure out how to hit the play button on this, because sometimes it'll advance to the next slide. I have PowerPoint issues sometimes. Go. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Play. Where's the play button? Oh, I hate when this happens when you guys are watching. Do me a favor, turn your heads. No? All right, fine. We're going to exit out of this. We'll do that, and we'll do that, and now I'll just... Is that actually a picture? That is a video, right? Why is there no play button? Anyone good with technology? All right, we'll try this one more time. If not, then I'll just go to my desktop. I swear this only happens while people are watching. This is supposed to be a video, and it's definitely not playing. All right, so we will go to plan B, which is go over to here, ignore my messy computer system. No, I want to go there. We're going to go to presentations, speak native videos. Just bear with me. Medieval tech support. Perfect, flawless. You guys didn't even notice that this was happening, did you? Okay.
Ja, så bra, ok. Ja, hei du. Hei du. Ja. Ja, hva gjelder det? Ja, det er det her. Ja, vil du sitte? Takk. Ja. Jaha. Ja, så jeg har ikke fått gjort noen ting hele formiddagen. Nei, jeg beklager at det tar tid. Altså, skjønner vi holder på å legge om til et helt nytt system, og da skal alle ha hjelp på en gang. Ja. Så du kommer ikke inn i den, eller? Nei, den bare ligger der. Ok, har du forsøkt å åpne den? Åpne den? Altså, hvis det hadde vært så enkelt, så hadde jeg jo ikke tilkalt helpdesk, hadde jeg vel? Nei, det er sant. Nei. Vil du ha en kopp varmt vann? Nei, det skal være fort gjort. Det skal vi se. Du bare gjør der. Sånn. Ja, da er vi i gang. Ja, altså så langt kom jeg også. Ok. Men så stoppet det opp, og så var jeg redd for at noe av teksten skulle forsvinne, så jeg turte ikke å gå videre. Åja, ok. Nei, men du skjønner at inni her, så ligger det kanskje flere 100 sider med lagret tekst. Så for å komme videre, så tar du tak i et ark på den måten her, og så liksom blar du over på neste side sånn. Da fortsetter teksten der. Jeg blar, altså? Du blar, ja. Men når jeg skal tilbake, da? Ja, da bare blar du tilbake igjen. Tar tak der, og så sånn. Der, så er du tilbake til den teksten du hadde sagt. Ikke noe... Ok, så den slutter der, og så fortsetter den der, ja. Ok, men når jeg skal avslutte for dagen, hva gjør jeg da? Da bare slår du sammen permene. Ja? På den måten der. Sånn. Da lukket der, ligger alt lagret inni der. Jeg risikerer ikke å miste noe av teksten her nå. Nei, alt ligger lagret inni her nå. Da må du i tilfelle sette fyr på hele greia. Det er kanskje litt sannsynlig. Så. Ja, ok. Nei, men for det er noe med det at liksom, når du har holdt på med skriftruller, så tar det litt grann tid å konvertere til å bla.
I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you get the idea. Now, I think we've all, at some point or another, felt a along those lines, right? Especially when they throw a new system at us. They switch us from Blackboard to Moodle or something like that, and the new system's always much more complicated than it used to be. Go away, go away. I'm going to try and reopen this and see if that works better. So that's the way it looks like from the adult perspective. That's the way a lot of us feel. Now, some students in Pennsylvania, and they were in Philadelphia at the Science Leadership Academy in Philly, they saw that video, and they decided to create their own little version of it to explain how they feel when interacting with that exact same technology. So let's see if I can figure out how to make this one play. I just realized sometimes you need to close PowerPoint and then reopen it, or sometimes that won't do anything at all. All right, forget that. Okay. It is this one here. Just netbook. I guess we're going to be playing all the videos from outside of PowerPoint today. It's vindictive for some reason.
Joe, what are you doing there?
It's a video. It's a picture. I don't know.
What's going on?
Well, this is this is like a foreign tool.
Okay. What was it? You said you were having a problem earlier?
Oh yeah. Wait, where's that? Yeah. So, I want to read more about Frederick Douglass, or maybe like see a larger image. So I double-clicked on the picture, but nothing's happening.
Oh.
And then I can't really read the text because it's kind of small. So. Looking for the system preferences so I can make the text bigger, but can't find anything.
Laura, you said there was a problem involved?
You can't double-click the image because it's not blue highlighted.
Oh.
And the words you don't know, they're not blue highlighted, so you can't.
Well, wait, cotton is king. That's blue.
Yeah, it might be.
What are you doing there? What? It's what?
It might be a link, Joe. Click on it.
Nothing's happening.
What's wrong, Joe?
I don't know. There's so many, like...
Joe, drag that picture. You could save it. That could be useful.
I don't even have a folder anywhere to put it in.
All right, we're not going to play the whole thing, but once again, you kind of get the idea. Now, here's the interesting thing. Both of those were kind of tongue-in-cheek. They were spoofs, right? They're just kind of designed to kind of show people how they interact, how those generations interact with technology. This third one that I want to show you it isn't fictional. It's real. And which kind of makes it, in some sense, a little almost scary. So this is a father, not me, just got to clarify that, letting his daughter play around with the iPad quite a bit. And now watch what happens when she interacts with print media. Watch her fingers. Trying to swipe. She's trying to pinch and zoom. And getting frustrated because it don't move. It don't interact. I love this, though, the troubleshooting. Let's make sure the hardware works. So nothing's happening there, so we might as well just test it in a different environment. There we go. Isn't that fascinating? And then, of course, the father has to get a little creepy by the end. Here we go. Steve Jobs has coded a part of her OS. Yeah, ain't that a little creepy? And yet, it is true. We see this again and again and again where kids are getting experience with technology from younger and younger and younger ages. And then what happens is they're coming into our schools with expectations. If it works for us in this one environment, why on earth wouldn't we be able to do it in all environments? That's just the reality, and it happens even more so from the younger they start getting experience with it. Now, Apple announced a few months ago, or about half a year ago now, I can't remember when it was, their textbooks, their digital textbooks. This is their foray. This is supposed to be textbooks 2.0. Any of you had a chance to play with it yet? You have. Thoughts? What do you think? It is engaging, especially when you compare it to what we've got currently, because it is interactive somewhat. And there is motion and there is media. All those things we know are good. But what it doesn't do is change the model. It's still a textbook. It's still the same experience. It's still linear. It's still uniform. There's really, all the interactivity is very, very staged and static. Essentially, it's a new paint job on an old toy. When we started at Discovery Education talking about building our own digital textbook, which we have done now, we now have a science tech book that is available for elementary, middle, and secondary, and we're about to launch our social studies one as well. The first thing that we decided to do was to get away completely from the book model, which is very disconcerting and to a lot of people. In fact, that's the one piece of feedback we got a lot, was there is no page numbers, there is no table of contents. And to a lot of teachers, that's kind of a comfort zone. Not that anybody really starts at page 1 and then goes up to page 300. They don't do that, but they like having that breakdown there. They like having that. And when you took that away, that got kind of, like I said, got a little disconcerting to say the least. Oh, thank you very much. So people think that our tech book, because it's a digital textbook, means that we're doing everything digital, doing everything on the computer, and that's not necessarily the case. We actually just brought out about 20 educators to talk about the future of digital textbooks out in Silver Spring, and we spent about an hour using the tech book. And what they found really strange was, of that hour, only about 10 minutes of it was actually spent on the computer. The rest of it was actually spent doing things, being engaged with science, active learning, and so on. It's just that the content that they use to supplement that, and the content that they use to use for the launching points, and for the things they can't do physically, they do online, and they do through interactives and virtual labs and all that other stuff. It's a balance there. Just because it's a digital textbook doesn't mean that all the content needs to be digital. You know, we try and take a very different model of it. This is what it looks like currently, and then it's going to be changing format pretty soon. It looks like a traditional web page, but the whole idea of it is that it's intended to be nonlinear. It's intended to be allow the teacher to take control of their curriculum, which is a very, very big shift, and a lot of teachers aren't necessarily ready for it because we've grown up with these sort of expectations that this is the way it functions, this is the way it's supposed to work, and so on. I know that I've grown up with those same sort of assumptions. I actually thought that I was sort of on that line between digital native and digital immigrant. You know, I typed my first paper, I think, when I was in 6th grade, and I really haven't handwritten much else since then. So I thought I could call myself a digital native. And then I had a boy and realized that I knew nothing at all. This is him at around age 1, when he'd mastered my video iPod at the time. He could go through all the different menus. He could find his videos and his songs. He could navigate it fluently, okay, which was kind of neat. But now at age 5, things are a little different. You do a Google search for Aidans Dembo. I did this one this morning. You get 63,000 results. 63,000. That is him working on his computer in his room. He publishes. He has a blog. Aidans.dembo.org. And I'm not even kidding you. This is Aidans' blog. It's called Aidans Things. And what it does is, whenever he sees something that he thinks is worth remembering, something that he thinks is interesting, he says, I want to remember that. We take out our camera, or he takes out his iPod Touch. We take a picture of it. He gives it to me, and he tells me what he wants it to be titled, and then we hit send, and it gets posted up onto his blog. I've actually looked through people taking notes on this session that have published their notes online, and invariably, somewhere in their notes, they'll say, really? 5-year-old blog? BS. No, it's true. This is what we're doing. This is Aidans Things. This was one of his posts. It's a shopping cart corral. I asked him what he wanted the title of that post to be. He said, I love sports. I'm a good teacher. Well, I think I'm a good teacher. I used to be a good teacher. I'm a good father. I delved, I probed, I asked why sports, what's the connection? There was no connection. That's just where he was that day. So be it. That one makes a little bit more sense. It's me eating this at the Botanic Gardens outside Chicago with a push-up. And he still posts today. In fact, the more interesting thing to me is that now he's also interacting with his audience. He's interacting with them. He read the book The Dot by Peter Reynolds. Any of you familiar with The Dot by Peter Reynolds? Any of you? Early childhood people, probably. All right, The Dot by Peter Reynolds, the whole story is this person who didn't think they could draw, didn't think they could do art. And the art teacher said, all right, fine, draw a dot. She goes, boom. And the teacher says, now sign it. And she signs it. And the next day, that dot is framed up on the wall. And that's all of a sudden, you know, that impetus to get that kid involved in art. Like all of a sudden she's excited because, you know, her dot is actually framed up. Well, Aiden read that dot. He read the book, The Dot. And the next day, he hands me, as I'm going off to do a conference, a stack of paper about this thick. I said, Aiden, what are these? He goes, these are dots. Your friends need them. I said, all right. So I took them with me, and true to form, I handed them out at the conference to people that I met at the conference. I said, here's a dot for my son. He thinks that you need it. Okay? Well, the funny thing is people started posting on Facebook and Twitter that they'd gotten a dot from Aiden. And then other people started saying, I want one too. So we added to his site in the upper right-hand corner. You can do this right now. If you go to aiden.dembo.org and you go look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see if you want a dot from Aiden, click here. You can post your snail mail address, and we will mail one to you. And true to form, we did that. He actually drew about 50 more dots and pictures and lines and so on. We went to the post office. We actually mailed them out to people around the country, and then we started getting photos back on Twitter and Facebook from people all over the place. This was not meant to be a global collaborative project. This was not part of our digital citizenship curriculum or anything along those lines. This is just Tuesday. This is just a part of that experience. Now, here's my question to you. Aiden is right now 5 years old and in preschool. My daughter is currently 1 year old. She got started earlier than Aiden on day 0. This is her Skyping with her parents and so on and so forth, grandparents and such. In fact, we actually wound up buying her first iPad case about when she was, I think, 2 months old. This is what it looks like. iPod case. It's a Fisher-Price iPod case. You actually unscrew the back, you put your iPod into it, you screw the back in, it will withstand a fall from a high chair, and it is completely drool-proof. She draws on it, she plays music, she interacts with it, and so on. So, and if you start looking on websites more and more often, you're seeing a ton of kids that are doing these exact same sort of things. These stories aren't all that unusual. And yet, what is the policy of the vast majority of schools around the country today? So think about this. What do you do when you've got 30 kids coming into a kindergarten classroom that have had these kinds of experiences? How do you take those devices away? Or even if you don't take them away, how do you not leverage them? How do you keep these kids engaged? How on earth do you tell them that the school policy is we will not post a picture with your first and last name because we're maintaining your privacy, when he's got around 4,000 photos of him online right now with his first and last name? He posts them by himself all the time. There's probably about 200 videos of him on YouTube from between me and my wife. So when you tell me that you're maintaining his privacy because you're not going to publish with his first and last name, I have an issue with that. I've already apologized to my wife again and again and again for the type of kindergarten father I am going to be, because I really do feel bad for my kid's kindergarten teacher. But the reality is when they send home that media agreement, that privacy statement, that acceptable use policy and all that, I'm going to have to doctor that sucker up. Because I want them to publish with his first and last name. That's really important to me. Because the stuff that he does at school, that should probably be the best work he has to offer. That should be the stuff that rises to the top of the Google search, which means doing some search engine optimization and getting his first and last name and location, if necessary, in along with that content. See what I mean? There's not a school in the country that's ready for this kind of a switch, but we need to be. We need to be, because our students are already engaging in this world, whether we like it or not. We're going to flip to the other side here. This is a website called College Confidential. College Confidential is a really cool site. What it does is it attempts to demystify the college application process. So, you've got kids on there that are saying, I'm thinking about going to this school, and here's what my stats are. Listen, if I'm going to go there and interview, what kinds of questions are they going to ask me? And to be honest, what's the right answers? What are they looking for there? What kinds of clubs should I be in if I want to get into Harvard and that kind of stuff? How important is that SAT? Should I really retake it or not? That kind of stuff. And they got people who are students right now who are responding, alumni who are responding, people who got rejected from the college who are responding, and they're all gathering together to demystify that whole application process. You better believe there's a ton of students and alumni on there. You better believe there's a ton of really stressed out parents that are on there too. And who else do you think hangs out on this site? Yeah, The colleges. Of course the colleges are hanging out on this site, because if they see a kid who may be a borderline case but happens to catch their eye, they can help push them through. Like this guy, Becker Boy 1225. My brother graduated undergrad at Duke. I'm thinking about doing the same. I'm a Hispanic male from New York. Here's my SATs, my ACTs, my AP courses, and so on. What are my odds? Should I be able to get in? Is this a safety school for me? Is this a stretch? Should I apply for other schools or not? What do you think? Now, if I were an admissions person from Duke, and this kid caught my eye, and I wanted to know a little bit more about Becker Boy 1225, what's the first thing I'm probably going to do? Yeah, Google him, right? So you highlight Becker Boy 1225, you drop it into Google, you do your search, and the first thing that comes up is his PlayStation Portable hacking service, where for a small fee, he will make it so that your PlayStation Portable will be able to play pirated games. And just in case you don't see the connection, it says right here, if you're interested or you have any questions at all, write on my wall or contact me at AOL Instant Messenger board, Becker Boy 1225. And of course, where else would he publish this but on Facebook? So with one more click, we can see exactly who he is, where he's from, and anything else we need, right? Now, if you're an admissions person from Duke, you might look at him and think, entrepreneur. Or you might think he's got a distinct lack of ethics. And it might really hurt his chances. What he might not realize is that innocent post may be the reason that he does or does not get into Duke. This could be one of those forks in the road that takes his life in a completely different direction, and he may never even know that it was because of something that he posted onto Facebook, some little moderately questionable activities that he chose to share. That's kind of disturbing in some sense. And that gets back to the whole point of the Mark Prensky article. A lot of people remember from that article the whole digital natives, digital immigrants thing, because that's what everybody talks about. But the final paragraph of that article was talking about that if digital immigrant educators really want to reach digital natives, they're going to have to change. And when he goes on to describe the change that he's talking about, he is not talking about the change in policy by the school. He's not talking about the district level change. He's not talking about the curricular change. He's talking about the internal change, that you decide you're going to do something to address this because you feel it's the right thing to do. He's talking about the Nike style of change. Just do it. That's what he's talking about. And I think that's kind of I think that's significant. And I think that kind of gets overlooked a lot of times when people are talking about that article. So, in terms of just doing it, we thought we'd try out a little bit of backchanneling today. Some of you have a device, a phone, an Android device, an iPad, a laptop. If you do, feel free. Go ahead and take it out. If you can get online, I'm hoping that you can. And we're going to use a site called Today's Meet. Now, I could have set this up ahead of time, but I did not, because I think this is one of those things that we can just do together right now. We're going to make sure that we're on live. We're going to create, Today's Meet is a place where you can do what's called backchanneling. Backchanneling is essentially passing notes or texting, but doing it all together as one large group, and doing it with the conscientious, deliberate notion that this is something that is okay, that it's okay to be distracted and chatting and talking during the session. So we need to create a room, and we're going to call it, how about Fraser Summit. That should be open. We will say that this one is going to expire in 1 month. If we want, we could say it's going to expire in 2 hours, and then in 2 hours it's going to be completely deleted. Don't worry about this showing up in someone's permanent record on Google or anything like that. Fraser-Summit. We're going to click Create Your Room, and here we go. So now the URL that you are going to go to is todaysmeet.com/Fraser-Summit. And when you do, you're going to see a really simple page where you can type in your username. I'll type in mine, or your not username, your name, and I'm going to click Join. And now I can just go ahead and type in my message, welcome to the back channel, everyone, and I click Say, and now it gets posted in there. So, if you are on that same page, go ahead and type in a name for yourself, and go ahead and type in a welcoming message. Everyone is going to see it in this room, so make sure it's inspiring. Yes? blocked under guest wire. At least we didn't check that. That's all right. You can remember that URL, right? They're going to try and get that going right now and get that unblocked so that you can give it a shot. It's just todaysmeet.com/Fraser-Summit. Okay? And you can see for some of those people that aren't on the guest wire list right now, they're already getting in. Now, what do we do with this? Well, ideally, as we're talking, as we're going through the rest of the session, as you're going through sessions throughout the day, this is a fantastic place to share your thoughts. If you agree with something that's said, you can mark off that it's a good point. If you disagree, you can throw out your challenges. If you have a question about something that's being said, there's a fine place to ask your questions, and then somebody else in the room may be able to address them. I won't be able to get to every single question while I'm presenting, but maybe someone else in the room has the answers already. If something that you hear strikes a connection to something else that you've read, you can go ahead and share a link out to it with pertinent research, with a tweet that you saw recently, something about Facebook, something about Apple, and so on. As you go along, this is where you can connect to the other people that are in the room, and you can do so in a socially acceptable way that's not going to disturb me. I understand that as I'm talking, some of you may be looking down. The difference is now, I'm going to assume that you're on here instead of checking your email like I was assuming you were doing about 10 minutes ago. You know what I mean? It makes me feel better at least. So, point being, this is where you can use to kind of collaborate together and document things. And also, I can ask questions along the ways, too. Like, for example, how many of you are on Twitter already? A pretty fair number. I don't know how many of you have actually shared your Twitter name with the other people in this room. If you feel comfortable sharing your Twitter account with the other people in this school or district, or if you're from a different district and so on with this group here, go ahead and throw your Twitter name up into here, so that way people have got some other people to connect to and follow. All right? So people will know where they can go find tweets from other educators that were also at this event. All right, so we are going to jump back over here, but we'll bounce back over to the today's meet throughout the day. Now, here's the beautiful thing about this. I don't do a back channel for every single session, not by a long shot. And I'm hoping that nobody in here is a middle school teacher that has a little bit too much in common with their students and decides to derail our back channel. That is a possibility. Guess what? I don't know what name you're putting in there. You could choose someone else's name. You could just make up a name entirely, or say like Homer Simpson, and you could try and just derail that back channel. That is possible. And if that is the case, well, then guess what? I'm not doing it with this group again, and I'm certainly not going to show it up on the projector, and it's just a learning experience. But the beautiful thing is, since these kinds of sites don't cost anything, and they are incredibly accessible, failure is free. Failure is free. This is part of that just do it sort of philosophy. It's giving it a chance, taking a shot. Pulling out today's meet with a group of middle school students, people might think that's absolutely insane. But you just tell them right up front, you can abuse this. And if you decide to, so be it. Then we just have one less privilege in this classroom. If you want to be able to do stuff like this, you have to show that you can be responsible for it. If you can't be responsible for it, so be it. You know what I mean? It's not a question of blame or anything like that. It's just a question of whether you're willing to give your students that chance to rise up, per se. Give them a chance to elevate themselves and take advantage and show some responsibility. And if it doesn't work, so be it. You move on. The fact is, these kids now need to be able to take control of these kinds of things. They need that sort of responsibility because they're being put in situations where they'll kind of they have the chance to get off the traditional education track, and they need to be ready for those sorts of opportunities. The reason for that, the reason I bring that up, is because of a kid named Judson Collier. Judson Collier is a total hero of mine, and I've been talking him up for a couple of years now. Judson is he was in high school at the time. He was really into graphic design, and he was a big fan of this website called CrowdSpring. CrowdSpring is a site that attempts to turn the graphic design model completely upside down. So normally, if you have a project and you need a new logo creator or a new t-shirt creator or something along those lines, you say, I want a shirt created, I want it to be orange, I want it to have the school mascot, I want it to say this, and different design companies will say, I can do it for this amount, I can do it for this amount, I can do it for this amount, here's my portfolio, look at me, pick me, pick me, pick me. With CrowdSpring, you do it differently. You say, here's what I need, here's what I'll pay, go. And people just create it. They just create it. They actually just create that logo, or they create that shirt digitally, and then you just at the end of it say, I like this one the best, here's your money, give me the files. So all of a sudden, it's not just this hypothetical, you're choosing a design company and trying to get them to make it, you're getting hundreds of responses. For one of our virtual conferences, we wanted to do a tech or treat theme, and so we wanted to be kind of techy, but kind of teachery and friendly and so on. We weren't sure exactly what we wanted, and we wound up getting, I think it was around 80 different, maybe 60 different responses and so on, and we wound up choosing this one up in the upper left-hand corner, which looked like this. That was our final design that we did through CrowdSpring. Now, I don't know who this person is that turned that in. They could have been a middle school student very easily. And you know what? They're getting responses and feedback and so on from us as a business no differently than any professional designer. That's fine. I gave everybody the same sort of feedback, letting them know what I liked and what I didn't like. Well, Judson was a fan of doing these kinds of projects and these kinds of sites, a huge fan of it. So when the company, CrowdSpring, said, we need an online community manager, and we're opening up applications for it, and they said, submit in your application, your bio, your resume, your letter of recommendation, and all that stuff. Judson decided to apply for the job. But here's where it gets interesting. He didn't send in a resume. He didn't send in a bio. He didn't actually even send in an application. He only sent in one thing, this video. My question to you is, given the minimal amount that you know about this company, and given what you've seen so far about his application, do you think this is an effective way to apply for a job at a company like CrowdSpring? Absolutely. Why? Yeah, he's creative. He's passionate. How on earth do you put this into a traditional resume? Think about that. Now, first of all, he's in high school, so it would be an awful short resume. You know what I mean? That's just the reality of it. But at the same time, how on earth could a traditional resume compete with this? I love this kind of stuff. He knows his target audience. He knows the kinds of people that are working in those offices. They're the creative types. They're kind of nerdy, a little geeky. They spend far too much time on YouTube watching viral videos. And he's tapping into all that kind of stuff. What do you want to do? A, hire someone who sends in a traditional resume, or B, hire someone who jumps 75 times, keep going, in 40-degree weather just to get the word out about himself. Not bad, huh? Not bad at all. He didn't get the job, but the reason that he didn't get the job is because they didn't want to hire someone who was in high school to start working for them full time. So instead, they created a new job for him called Online Community Evangelist that he could do for about 3 hours a week while he got his high school diploma and figured out what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. See what I mean? Now, are we preparing our students to jump on these kinds of opportunities because they're happening all the time. In fact, these are the kinds of things that more and more employers are looking for. I include this slide because I think this is a powerful message that the president of Sony in Japan several years ago, he made this announcement that he wasn't going to be playing golf anymore. And the reason he wasn't going to be playing golf anymore was because instead of playing golf, the people that he wants to network with, people he wants to recruit and hire and so on, they aren't on the golf course. Instead of being on the golf course, they're in places like this. Who knows what that is? There's always one corner of people, World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft. Yes, World of Warcraft, where you play an orc and you go out and raid elf castles. Yes, I'm oversimplifying, okay? But that's essentially what you're doing, except that you're doing it with millions of other people in real time from around the world. And you can go on those raids as groups, forming guilds, where everybody's got different responsibilities and all have to work as a team to accomplish great things. And what he found was the skill set it took to manage 100 orcs from around the world in real time to go all successfully pull off a raid on an elf castle, that skill set was remarkably similar to the skill set it takes to organize a team of people working on the PlayStation 3. Those were the people that he was looking for. Those people who can organize guilds in World of Warcraft. The people who can organize campaigns on Facebook. The people, the kids in high school who have 100,000 followers on Twitter. Those are the people that he is looking for to lead his company. To lead his company. Those are the people, that's the kind of skill set that they're looking for. The people who are adept in that space. And it's not just the employers, it's the colleges too. Tufts University, this is where my sister went to school. They last year, they added a new part of the application process. I don't know why I've got all these funky slides. In addition to the traditional essays that you could do, you had like 5 or 6 different essays that you had to do, and then you also had an optional 6B essay. Prepare a 1-minute video that says something about you, upload it to an easily accessible site like YouTube, and send us the URL. Doesn't have to be public. You can make it private. Just get us the URL so we can watch it. Hundreds of people jumped on that. In fact, if you do a search for it now, you'll find, do a search for Tufts essay. You will find thousands of these videos. Some of them are stellar. Others aren't. But the really good ones actually have hundreds of thousands of views. Much more than just the admissions department. They're actually getting a lot more out of it than just a college application. I thought I'd play just one of them for you. This is one of my personal favorites. And let me see if I can exit out of here. Tufts. Here we go. Tufts supplemental essay.
How does one decide an experience is intellectual? What do you call a jazz player in the big city sitting up all night and improvising to the rhythm of the noise outside? Soul-searching is an intellectual experience, pushing your mind and body to do more, to understand more. I love music, and my determination to master my inner melody has led to journeys that have changed me.
No, we don't need to see it again. Stop. Pretty phenomenal, huh? She's applying for the jazz program over at Tufts. Now, my question is always this. How on earth could she have put that into a 5-paragraph essay before they allowed taking, people to submit via video? I have no idea. I have no idea how on earth she could have ever done that. And that's why I work for a media company, Discovery Education. It's the education arm of the Discovery Channel. Media is in our blood. We advocate for teachers using media in the classroom as much as possible because we feel it's an effective way to teach. It really helps, especially those teachable moments. Kid asks a question you're not necessarily prepared for. How does a volcano work? You pull up a video on how volcanoes work. You don't need to pretend to be the expert and so on. And they can actually see it happening for themselves instead of just hearing you describe it. That's all well and good. But we also realized that it was completely insufficient for today's learners, which is why we spend so much time nowadays focusing on teaching teachers how to make use of that media, how to get their students actually mastering that media, to use that as the starting point for a conversation, and then get the students to actually download that media and chop it up and recreate it and create digital stories from it, to put it into Prezzies, to put it into glogs, to do all sorts of other things with it, but to make it their own, because that's the part that leads to being good at things like this. And the fact is, they need to be good at things like this. They have to nowadays, because there's such stiff competition, because other people are good at it. Other people are, which means they're going to be competing against those people. And you know, the college admissions people have said, again and again, they don't search on every student. They don't have time to do that. You know when they search on students? You know when they do the Google search or the Facebook search? 2 times. One, if there's money involved, if they're thinking about giving a kid a scholarship, that's when they do a search on them, because they don't want to give a kid a scholarship, then they find that there's pictures of him drinking beer on Facebook. So they always do it then. The other time is when there's a decision to be made. They've got 3 kids that all qualify. They've got 1 spot left. That's when they go to Google. Now, in that situation, there's only 3 things that can happen. What they find can help you, can hurt you, or do neither. And if it does neither, then it hurts you. If it's not helping you, then it's harming you. Being invisible is just as bad as having a bad permanent record and so on, and negative things and so on. There's an element of marketing today that kids need to be adept at. They need to know how to market themselves. And it seems strange to say that, especially as educators. Marketing always kind of feels slightly icky, but they need to be able to market themselves to stay competitive in today's job places. It's just the reality. The opportunities are there for the people who actually take them. For example, first ever Pinnacle Middle School yearbook. This is through a site called Kickstarter. This is a group of middle school students who have never had a yearbook before. They never had the budget for it. They never were able to get the PTO to raise the money for it and so on. So instead, they decided to go to the people. And they put themselves up on this website called Kickstarter. Kickstarter says you basically put up your project, you make your case, and you try and convince people to invest in you, in a sense. And you can say, if you buy in at this level, you will get this. If you buy in at this level, you'll get this. If you buy in at this level, you'll get this. And nobody pays a dime unless we meet our goal. At the end of the time period that we have our project open, if we meet our goal, then everybody gets charged right at that point, and then we have to follow through. If we don't meet our goal, nobody gets charged. It's actually what the same kind of premise that Groupon was based on originally. So their goal was $4,000. On January 4th, they were successful, and they were funded $4,100. They got money from 76 different people. The video itself is pretty fascinating, but what I love is the levels with which you could buy in at. For $1, you would get the genuine thanks from all 33 people on the yearbook staff. Okay? Now, if you decided to pledge more, for $30, you would get a bag of Flaming Hot Cheetos sent to your address and the genuine thanks from all the people involved. For $50, you would get the Flaming Hot Cheetos and a set of behind-the-scenes photographs from them making the yearbook. And for $100, you could actually get an ad of yours or a picture of yours or something like that in the yearbook itself. Okay? Kind of cute, kind of creative. And then we take it to the next level. This is Bella. Bella's an 11-year-old who wanted to create an album. And not just an album like I'm going to record it at home with my own little microphones and burn it to CDs that I just bought in Best Buy. She wanted to go to the studio. And she wanted to actually get a real album created, one that's actually going to have all the right materials to actually get it into music stores and so on. She decided, after doing some research, that she needed $20,000 in order to do that. So she put up her project on Kickstarter. She made her video. She made her case. She wound up getting funded, $21,000. 143 people backed her. You want to see some of the prizes that she was putting up? Well, for $25, you get an autographed copy of the CD. For $50, you get the CD and the friendship bracelet, handmade by her. For $125, the behind-the-scenes video. For $250, your name in the liner notes. Here's where it gets interesting to me, though. For $1,500, you get dinner for 4 at her house. and a private concert. For $3,500, you get an intimate acoustic concert by Bella at your home, anywhere in the continental U.S. And 2 people bought that. She has talent. She has talent. She is a talented musician. But in today's society, talent is not enough. You need to know how to get yourself out there. You need to know how to be able to market yourself. And that is a critical piece of it. Any of you seen any of the press on Kane's Arcade? Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. This just kind of really hit the interwebs yesterday. Here, we'll go over here. Here, we'll do it from here. Kane's Arcade. I think I have it in my history. Kane's Arcade. Actually, his website was pretty slammed yesterday. We'll see how well it actually does today. Hey, there we go. Well, Kane is a 9-year-old boy who, while his father was working in his, he is an aftermarket auto shop, auto parts shop and so on. While his father was working in the office, he was allowed to basically use the front end of the store to grab boxes and grab tape and whatever other materials he could find and build things. And he was a fan of those arcade-like things like at Chuck E. Cheese's, all those games of skill where you get the tickets and all that. So he decided to make his own. And he made his own out of cardboard and tape and so on. And I'm not going to be able to show the whole, I'll go ahead and play just a little bit. Here's actually his arcade. You can see he put up a wall of pegboard with prizes. Here's all the different games and screens. And he created his own little mini skee ball. He created his own little mini, his own little hook machine, the claw game and so on, all out of cardboard. And the beautiful thing about it is, if you wanted to play, anybody who came into the store could pay a couple of bucks, and they would get a card. Actually, I believe he said it was for $1, you got 2 games. For $2, you got a fun pass, and you could play 500 games. Math skills were not exactly the strong suit, I guess. But the best thing was, while this person who wound up creating this video was playing the game, Kane would crawl into the box from the back and push tickets out the slot for him. This thing is phenomenal. And at the time when the person who created this documentary went in, at the time, he was Kane's very first customer. He'd spent his entire summer building this phenomenal project, incredible project. If you watch this, it's really a touching video. Nobody knew about it. Nobody knew about it. And it was entirely possible that at the end of the summer, this thing would have just gotten boxed up, put away. He would have gone back to school, and that would have been that. Thankfully, somebody who actually was into documentary making and so on happened to stop by there for a door handle, see this project, created this, and actually yesterday released the video, I believe it was yesterday or a couple of days ago, and he put a little widget on the side that said if you want to make a donation to Kane's Scholarship Fund, you can donate $1 or $2 here. In 24 hours, they raised $90,000. After you watch the video, you'll get it why. But that's an opportunity that he never would have had somebody with an idea of how to market these kinds of things hadn't just happened to stop by. You see what I mean? Being brilliant isn't enough. Having a great idea isn't enough anymore. You need to be able to know how to get these kinds of messages and this sort of word out. There he is. Here, I love the, wait, here, if this is check this out. So in order to make sure that the tickets are valid.
To see if it's a real fun pass or not. On the back, the fun pass has security number. So when you go here, you turn it on, you put the PIN number in it, and you push a check mark button, and the big number comes out. That's how you know it's a real fun pass.
Did you catch that? He doesn't even know what that checkmark button does anyway. It's completely irrelevant. That's the code that he used to make sure it's a legit, that somebody's not walking in there with an artificial fun pass. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And it came this close to just not even ever being, he'd had it there the entire summer and not one person had ever even played a game. You see what I mean? It's important. We got these kids that are really have things that are worth sharing, and the size of the audience is almost irrelevant. It's almost irrelevant. There's all these different websites that are popping up now, things like Clout. Clout is a website that, I mean, whether you like it or not, what they're trying to do is they're basically showing that the things that you do online have a concrete value to them. the number of followers you have, the number of people you're connected with on Facebook, the things that you talk about, the topics that you're passionate about, all of those things get attached and they create a clout score. A score that goes, I think, for somewhere between 1 and I think 80 is the top, or somewhere right around there. I've never seen one above 80. But what happens is then is they actually have companies that are saying, if you are into digital photography and you have a clout score of 30 or more, we'll just send you a camera. Now, we're not asking you to do anything in return. We just trust that you're passionate about photography. You're talking a lot on Twitter about photography. More than likely, you probably will, and hopefully, if you actually like the product, you'll become an evangelist for it. At one point, I jumped onto Clout, and because of the score that I was at and because I talk about technology a lot, they said, we'll send you a Windows phone. Any of you have a Windows phone? Yeah, I didn't think so. Neither did I. Nor did I really care about to have one. I didn't really care about Windows phones. I'm an Apple guy. I love the iPhone and so on. But they sent me out one along with a SIM card, and I spent about 2 weeks playing around with this thing. You know what? I'm a fan of Windows Phone. I'm not switching, but I'm talking about it right now. You see what I mean? And I talked about it a little bit on Facebook and on Twitter and so on. So it works. The point is, your reputation actually has concrete value. And it's not just about super large numbers. A lot of times it's about the niche, about the group that you listen to. You know, the old model was that in the future everybody will be famous for 15 minutes. That was the Warhol model. The new model is, in the future everybody will be famous. You can't even read that. In the future, everybody will be famous for 15 people. Everybody will be famous for 15 people. And it's those 15 people that give you that sort of value. Another similar site to this is a site called Scholar Match. Scholar Match is kind of like Donors Choose or Kickstarter, except that you can make investments directly into people. Think about what people did with Kane's Arcade, same sort of thing. Some kid who really wants to go to college, who has potential, they think they've got something to share and so on, and they don't have the money. They weren't able to actually get a scholarship from the college. Their parents can't afford college. Well, they can go up to here to Scholar Match, and they can put themselves on the site, and they can make their case, and they can share their GPA and their, what kinds of things. They can share letters of recommendation and so on. And then you, as visitors to this site, you can choose to make an investment directly in a person and not an institution. Instead of donating to the University of Iowa, which is my own personal alma mater, I could donate directly to an individual student and help them get a university degree and so on. But of course, once again, how do they do that? They need to know how to market themselves. This is an article that I thought was kind of fascinating because apparently it's getting so hard right now for technology companies to find good programmers because they're all going to the Googles and the Facebooks and so on, that now these smaller companies are going to incredible lengths to attract good programmers, good engineers and such. So with this company, if we hire you or the person you refer to, this is an actual signing bonus for a technology company in Silicon Valley right now. We'll give you $11,000 cash wrapped in bacon, a spear gun, a year's supply of Dos Equis, some Cuban cigars, and an oil painting of yourself, a fancy tuxedo, and so on. This is an actual signing bonus. But what I thought was also really interesting was in the same article, the CTO of Yammer says if an engineer has submitted a resume to us, we know they're no good. We're not even interested. If that's how they choose to apply, is through a basic resume, we're just not even interested. Now, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I just saw an article this morning about recruiters. They actually took 15 different, I'm sorry, maybe it was 150 different recruiters, and they actually did eyeball tracking as they looked through different resumes, actually looking for applicants. And you know what they found? On the average, they spent about 6 seconds looking at the resume before moving on. And if you don't capture their attention within 6 seconds, you've lost your opportunity. That's it. So once again, how do we make sure that people are going to keep coming back? Well, you do things that are different. People are creating these things called social media resumes. They are online resumes that are not exactly the traditional one. Mike Freeman doesn't work for you guys yet. Let's fix that. He wanted to get into e-commerce, to work for a site like Amazon.com or Zappos or any of those e-commerce sites online. Okay? That's what he wanted to do. So what better way to actually put his best foot forward and to put his resume online than to just create an e-commerce site that only sells one product? Him. So he created, using some open platform, he created this entire e-commerce site where you can go ahead and read all about him, and then you can choose to buy the product, which is him. Your options are choose a date and time for an interview. When you click add to cart, it does the whole confirmation message and so on. You put in your information, and along with the interview, you will get a firm handshake, limited edition business card, and resume hard copies at that time. He wound up getting a job at Overstock.com through this. This is a software development person, a strategist named Brandon Kleiman. I love this line. I know you're going to wind up checking me on Facebook, so let's just start there. He took his entire resume, he rewrote it on chalkboards with pictures of himself doing it, and he posted that as a photo album on Facebook. And that's just where he sends them. So they start off on Facebook, and then when they click on each picture, it just takes them. Now, the beautiful thing about this is it lives, it breathes. You get an idea for who he is. It's not just static black and white text. You get a sense of his personality there. You see what I mean? You can almost hear his voice. Or if you wanted to, you could literally hear his voice. There's another social media one, which is a little bit more traditional in some sense, but along the left-hand side, I love that it has all these different connections to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Technorati, not just the things that he has done, but the things that he is doing. And just in case you want a headshot of him, you've got the full-size, web-size, and even the Lego version. Letting the personality show through. This is actually a school principal, NMHS principal, at New Milford High School in Bergen County, New Jersey, and so on. Front and center, it's got a video of him, so you can actually see what he has to say. It's got his tweets, his blogs, everything else that he's sharing in real time. And that's how you learn about him. It's something that I do during with my students at my Wilkes course online. They have to create a digital portfolio, but not a traditional digital portfolio, one that lives, one that breathes, one that demonstrates the things that they are doing right now beyond just the classroom, who they are. If you want to hire me, this is the kind of person that I am. If I'm not the right person for you, then so be it. So they're putting in things like, they're actually putting in pictures of things that they're passionate about. They're putting in the books that they're reading. They're putting in their blog. They're putting in their Twitter and all those other kinds of things. And what it does is it sends a strong message. Because right now, we're in a situation where things are moving way too quickly for everything to only be posted if it is a final draft. It's an idea they talked about in this book called Wikinomics, that things right now are in perpetual beta. What that means is it's okay to let the raw stuff out so long as there is an understanding of the difference between the work in progress, the omelet as it's being made, and the final draft. There was a school in Canada, and the way they wound up addressing this was kids wanted to be blogging, but they were worried that if they were doing their blogs and they weren't focusing on grammar and so on, that people were going to be judging them and saying, oh, they don't know how to write, when that may have not been the purpose of that blog post. They were just trying to do a stream of consciousness and get it out, and weren't so stressed out about the perfect grammar and perfect spelling and all that kind of stuff. So they created a symbol that goes into the sidebar of their blog, that text a stamp of quality. And if that stamp of quality is on the page, that means that page is a final draft. Judge it as you will. If that stamp isn't on that page, then it's a work in progress. And just understand, we're just sharing what's going on in our classroom, and there may be some rough edges and so on. And that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. It's about that whole thing about failure being free. It's about taking chances. One of the things that we had to do in my class, in my Wilkes class, the online class, is that they also had to do a live broadcast. A live broadcast. Now, here's the funny thing about it. Every single one of these people were educators. They, for a living, stand in front of people and talk all day long. But you put a camera in front of them, and most of them are terrified. Even if they know the only person on the other end is their husband or father or friends or anything like that, it's still terrifying, something about that. So to kind of overcome that, we do have each person do a live broadcast, and they have to be responsible for drumming up their own audience and so on. Well, this group of people that did that, it was funny because they did some professional development about how to use some technology in the classroom. They invited their principal and their superintendent to watch their live broadcast. They were so excited about it, they had them present at the next faculty meeting, and now they're in charge of technology integration at their school. It's amazing what these kinds of things lead to. You got to be careful with it. Another example of that is the same sort of thing. This person was not comfortable getting on camera, so instead she did it slightly differently. She went onto this website called Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio allows you to do a live radio show through the internet, okay? So you are talking through the phone. You have the ability to have other people calling in, so you can take guest callers through the show, and then the whole thing is broadcast out through the web, and it's saved so you can release it also as a podcast afterwards. She had 4 parents call into her show talking about digital safety, internet safety. It's now become something that she does on a regular basis. She does live shows where she talks about education issues with her parents. What a phenomenal way to get them involved. And one other example of this is the same sort of thing. Well, you know what? We don't have time. We're going to skip over that one. We're going to skip over that. The whole idea is from Malcolm Gladwell. I love this quote. If you really want to bring a fundamental change to people's beliefs and behaviors, you need to create a community around them where those new beliefs can be practiced, expressed, and nurtured. It's something, a philosophy idea that everybody kind of needs to embrace, that it is okay to take chances. It's okay to take chances even in front of students and let them be part of that learning process, and if things don't work, so be it. That happens. That is reality. I don't have it in here, but one of my favorite things was Vicki Davis in her very first flat classroom project. It was a global collaborative project involving 5 classrooms in 5 different continents. And the interesting thing about it was they said, we're going to be studying this. Here's what you kind of need to do. Now just go. They didn't tell the students what tools to use or how to collaborate across these borders and time zones and all this other stuff. They said, you figure it out. How are you going to do your research? How are you going to gather it? How are you going to present it back? In 3 weeks' time, we're talking about 15 school days, those students wound up using 35 different Web 2.0 tools. 35 different ones. Why? Because they tried a lot of things and found they didn't work and then moved on. And you know what that sounds remarkably similar to? Real life. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is. If things don't work the first time, you pick up and you move on. But it's a matter of actually taking those chances and actually doing something about it. It's why I'm such an advocate for this website called Posterous and to do blogging through it. Because what I found is most of you, I bet there's a lot of people in this room, how many of you have ever created a blog? Okay, keep your hands up for a second. Keep your hands up. How many of you ever created a blog? Now, if you're not still actively maintaining it, put your hands down. Okay, you see what happened there? Very few people actively maintain it. Why? Because what winds up happening is you build it up in your own head. You make it more than it necessarily needs to be. What happens is there's something known as blog guilt. Okay? What it says is, here's what happens with a blog guilt. You have your blog. There are going to be people who may be reading it at some point, so you need to put things on it that are blog-worthy, that are blog significant. And then, well, that takes up a little bit of time and effort, so you kind of put it off for a week. And then a week later, you realize, well, I haven't put up anything for a while. If I'm going to put up something now, it really needs to be good, because now I need to justify that long break that just happened, right? So then all of a sudden, it keeps building and building and building, and eventually you just stop doing it altogether, because you can't deal with the pressure that you just put on yourself. Okay? Sound vaguely familiar? Yeah. So what I advocate for is a different type of blogging through this website called Posterous, which basically eliminates all of that pressure by taking the blogging off of the computer and switching it to your phone. Okay? Posterous allows you to, you can try this out right now. Send an email to post@posterous.com. Post@posterous.com, and I don't have, I'll put that up in just a minute. What will happen is when you send it out, you'll get an email back almost immediately. It says, hi, you're new here. I've never seen you before. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set up a blog for you, okay? If your Gmail address is fluffybunny74@gmail.com, your new blog is fluffybunny74@posterous.com. Okay? And you know that email you just sent me? Whatever you put in the subject line, that's going to be the title of your blog post. Whatever you put in the body of your blog, in your email, that's going to be the body of your blog post. You keep emailing me, I'll keep posting it to your blog. And that's it. That's the end of our relationship. You don't even need to sign up or register or do anything else. Keep emailing me, and I'll keep posting. If you want to customize your blog, if you want to change the URL or do anything fancy, you can sign up over here, and then you can do all sorts of other things as well, but you don't necessarily have to. And now all of a sudden, you find that people are blogging, and they're taking the pressure off themselves. They're increasing frequency by decreasing the amount that they're writing. For example, this is a principal in Portland, Oregon. Okay, his name is Tim Lauer. And I love this post that he put up over the summertime. Just spent 15 minutes listening to my custodian explain to me the floor wax stripping process. Love summer at school, bright, shiny floors. Now, he is the school principal. This is the principal's official blog. Is this the kind of thing you would probably see on your own probably not. But here's the other interesting thing about it. This is the middle of summertime at a private school that has around 300 or 350 students. And in the middle of summer, there were 216 people that looked at that post. Now, 216 is not a lot in terms of YouTube numbers. But in terms of a school community of 250 people in the middle of summer that are checking the principal's blog, that's kind of cool. That's very cool. And what it's doing is it's just doing a light touch to let them know what's happening inside the school. It's increasing school transparency. It's breaking down these sorts of barriers. It's something called ambient intimacy. Ambient intimacy is a term that it's why Twitter has become so powerful, why Facebook has become so powerful. What it basically means is a series of light touches over time leads to a sense of an intimate relationship. Light touches over time. You and me may have never met. Follow my Twitter account for 1 month and you'll feel like you know me. You'll feel like you know me enough to actually be able to have a conversation with me as if we were old buddies. Do you know what I mean? We actually have a relationship, even if I've never necessarily met you. That's what it's referring to. And there's a lot of people that are actually taking advantage of this kind of stuff. Those people that are following Tim Lauer's blog, they have a relationship with him. They have an idea what he's doing. Somebody asked me to look it up. This was, I think, in November, to pull up his blog and see whether there's anything more recent, whether he's still doing that same sort of thing. So what kinds of cutting-edge things is he posting on his blog now? New bench in room 17. Once again, we normally would probably not make the newsletter, okay? It might not make the newsletter, but at the same time, what it does is it's demonstrating that he's out and about, that he's not just locked away in an office, that these are the kinds of things that are happening daily he's just increasing transparency in the classroom. Now, this is something that he's basically doing is he's taking a picture on his iPhone, he's typing up roughly 3 lines on his iPhone, and then clicking send, and it's posting the entire thing up there. He didn't even need to necessarily type that whole thing. He could have just sent the picture, and that would have been it. There's a superintendent out in Minnesota, that Superintendent Jerry Ness, and that's all he does. He walks around throughout the day, and he takes pictures of what's happening around the school, and he posts it online. He doesn't use student names. He doesn't refer to anything directly. He just snaps a shot, types in a little title, clicks post, and moves on with his life. He does that with photos, and he does it with videos. And you know what it does? It makes a connection, a strong connection, a sense of relationship between him and the community, him and his constituents. And we can do the same thing as teachers, too. Just think about that. If you could update your blog 5 or 6 times throughout the day by doing nothing more than when the kids finish their science experiment, snapping a quick photo of it and posting it, our science experiment today, done. Or having the kids do it. All of a sudden, then, all the pressure is off. And instead of letting it build up and saving it all for a Friday newsletter, your parents can actually check and see what their students are doing in the classroom, in the school, before they leave work. And when they get home, they can ask their kid a more intelligent question than just, how was your day? Fine. You know what I mean? It's a website called, like I said, Posterous. So there's the actual email address, post@posterous.com. If you want to give that a try, I highly, highly recommend it. I think it's the best way to do blogging right now. And like I said, it's good enough for a principal, it's good enough for a superintendent, it's good enough for a teacher, and FYI, that's how Aiden blogs. It's good enough for a 5-year-old. He's using Posterous as well. Whenever we take a photo, we just add a title to it, and we email it to post@posterous.com, and it goes directly up on Aiden's blog. It's a shift. It's a mind shift. That's all it is. And I think it's nicely summarized by this person out in Pennsylvania, EdTech Innovators. He says he no longer gives his students assignments anymore. Instead, he gives them creative briefs. What does that mean? Instead of saying, I want 3 paragraphs back, he says, demonstrate your knowledge for me. Demonstrate your understanding for me. Why? Because there's so many different ways that people can be demonstrating information for them nowadays. Things like this, Swedish Twitter University, where the kids have to do now, instead of doing a traditional PowerPoint presentation, when they've got a topic, they're going to tweet it out. Maximum of 25 tweets long. Each tweet has a 140-character limit. Each tweet must be broken naturally. You cannot just say continue and so on. Can you take your topic and synthesize it down to 25 concise points? And then have a conversation based on that. That's an entirely different way to communicate that information that's actually very, very relevant nowadays. What about moving it to Facebook and using Facebook as your platform instead of 5 paragraphs? Could you create a Facebook profile to demonstrate your understanding of Thomas Hobbes? Absolutely. You could do it in a fake way by using sites like My Fake Wall and such, but this is actually a real Facebook page that I found one day. Found completely accidentally while searching for people using Discovery Education Media and so on. I found the Facebook page of Thomas Hobbes and his 37 friends. There is a class somewhere in the world right now that is using Facebook as their personal publishing platform. And they have created it for historical figures. They have posted up photos, they posted up bios, they posted up all the pertinent information for these historical characters, and they are interacting with each other on an ongoing basis using Facebook. What a great way to teach about history and to talk about social networking and such at the same time. Or things like Google Lit Trips. Google Lit Trips is what happens when a 30-year language arts teacher takes one look at Google Earth, and instead of seeing the traditional Google Earth and seeing geography or history or social studies, took one look at it and said, wow, this would be a great way to tell stories. Looking at Google Earth and saying, this would be a great way to track classic literature, to take things like Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer and such, and actually trace their travels along the Mississippi River, put in push pins at all the different places where they stopped, and in those push pins, put in comments and discussion questions and pictures of those actual places and digital media and so on, and then gather that whole thing up and share them out. People are even doing it for other books like The Hunger Games, tracing the Hunger Games and trying to figure out where exactly on the United States, on North America, each of the different districts were and what the paths were of the different, throughout the books and so on. And they're embedding them all into things like Google Earth. Google Earth was never intended to be used like that. That's not how they meant it to be used, but people are just looking at it as an open platform and hijacking it and making it their own. That's the beautiful thing about it. That's the beautiful thing about these Web 2.0 tools. The way I look at it with this whole Web 2.0 revolution, anytime you can integrate in your own comments, your own media, your own images, your own videos, your own sound, you can take it and you can make it your own, and there's probably a way to use it in a classroom. That's the way I found it, at least. That's what I found it time and time and time again. The only trouble we have, more often than not, is something that I call the box of Legos issue. The box of Legos issue basically states this. If you were to buy this box of Legos and you were to take it home, what would you probably build? Yeah, that spaceship. From experience, with my own son, we take this box of Legos home, we build it, and then 10 minutes later he breaks the entire thing. Now, after he breaks it up, though, what would he build again when he starts building something new? Another spaceship. He can't get himself mentally away from spaceships, even though they're just bricks. They're just bricks, and they could be used to build just about anything else in the world. There's a million other things that could be created, and yet he can't seem to get away from the fact that because they came in a box that had a spaceship on it, they have to be used. One time we were building a ship. Okay, we ran out of bricks, and there was a whole other bag of bricks, and I said, let's just open that and use those. He goes, no, Daddy, those are pirate Legos. I'm like, but they're square and yellow, they're fine. And he goes, no, those are pirate Legos, these are space Legos. We cannot mix the two. These are mental barriers that we all wind up having. And what really happens, the real innovation comes when you start mixing those bricks together. There's something called the Medici effect. Breakthroughs occur at the intersection of fields, disciplines, and cultures. And like I said, it's when a 30-year literature teacher takes one look at Google Earth and says, this would be a great way to tell stories. It's the same thing when people look at Twitter and say, this would be a great way to a replacement for a PowerPoint, this would be a great way to collaborate, this would be a great way to express information, and so on. Twitter is an interesting example because so many people have found ways to make use of it that they never intended. They never intended any of these kinds of things to happen. Like for somebody finding the intersection of Twitter and the washing machine. Okay? Now, most people wouldn't think there's much of an intersection, but this is a guy out in California who was great with Twitter, checked Twitter 30, 40 times a day. But when he'd throw a load of laundry in the washing machine, he'd promptly forget about it. And 3 days later, he's got a science experiment on his hands. Okay? So what he did was he rigged up a little device to Twitter, and these are things now that you can actually buy online. So what wound up happening is whenever his washing machine would finish, it would send him out a tweet. So he would know that the washer was done, go downstairs, take that stuff out. This is real. I can show you exactly how to do this yourself right now without much technology at all. Twitter and the Common House plant. This is a device that you can buy right now on thinkgeek.com. And if you go to thinkgeek.com, it costs $99. You put it together yourself, and then when your plant needs water, it will send you out a tweet. And if you overwater it, it will mock you. Twitter and a house cat, a little bit of a warmer climate than this. There's a guy who has a cat door and never knew whether his cats were inside or outside the house. So he put in some RFID tags, these little stamp-like things that you can get from Radio Shack, that kind of like in grocery stores or in libraries. And when the cat goes in or out of the house, it sends out a tweet. And then he rigged up a camera so it actually took a picture of the cats as they were coming in and going. Coming in and going out. My favorite one, though, is this. Twitter and the unborn baby. This is a father who wanted to be a little bit more in tune with his wife's pregnancy, so he rigged up this not-so-little belt, and whenever the baby kicked, it sent out a tweet. I kicked mommy on Thursday at 2 o'clock. My wife made me promise that I don't know how to make those kinds of things before she got pregnant with my daughter. Okay? So now the interesting thing, though, is if you actually go to that Twitter account now, one of the most recent tweets is, "Hello world, I'm not going to kick mommy anymore because I was born yesterday. Maybe I'll use Twitter someday soon." And then if you follow the very next link, it takes you to this, mini mensch. "I just figured out how to roll from my belly to my back. That wasn't so hard. Mommy and daddy are good coaches." This is a child who's been using Twitter since before he was born. What are you going to do with him when he's one of your students? Just think about that one. There is a ton of different Web 2.0 sites out there. A ton. Too many. And the one trouble that we have more than anything, and this is what I've seen time and time again, people get so fixated on the examples and how the site is intended to be used that they forget that we can it's just a platform. We can take advantage of it. We can use it for learning and make it your own. One of the best examples of this is Wordle. How many of you are familiar with Wordle? All right, great. You all should be familiar. If you're not familiar with Wordle, you should be. You type in a bunch of text, and it creates a word cloud from it, where the word that's used most frequently gets elevated and comes out first. This is one of my favorite examples for a Wordle. And the reason is, most people, when they think of Wordle, they think about speeches, or they think about history, or they think about making posters for their classroom. Most people don't think along these lines. This is how a physical education teacher, a PE teacher, made use of Wordle. You catch what the theme is here? What is it? Yeah. It's a food diary. This PE teacher was talking about health, had their students write down every single thing that they ate for an entire week, then highlight the whole thing and drop it into Wordle so you could see visually how healthy you're eating. Think about yourself if you were to do the same. Write down everything that you eat for an entire week, drop it into Wordle. How big would the word nuggets be? You see what I mean? And in a million years, I never would have thought a PE teacher would be making use of Wordle. But once we break away from that box of Legos, some real magical things can kind of happen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I know it's been kind of a long thing, long session per se, or a long opening. Remember at the very beginning, I asked whether there was any music inside a piano? Well, the easy answer is no. There's no music inside the piano. Piano is just wood and wires. It's an instrument. The music is what's inside of all of us. And the technology is exactly the same way. All of these different devices, all of these different websites, all they are wood and wires. They are the instruments that we play with to express our learning and our students' passion for creativity, for education, and to help them be successful in this new age. Thank you very much, everybody. Whew. Great job. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Steve. Obviously, we always joke about that's like drinking water from a fire hydrant because there's so much information so quick. But certainly, it sets the tone for all of us as we get into our conversations on blended learning. And I think the conversation at the very end, the statement at the very end about technology as a tool, and that's always a big a starting point, because technology, we know research shows it doesn't improve student achievement. What happens with the teacher, the power of the teacher, the art of teaching is what improves student achievement, and that certainly is a great spot to begin. A couple of technical issues just to update everybody on. First and foremost, great job on today's meeting. It's been great listening or watching some of the comments online. That site is unblocked now on the guest network, so you should be able to get into there and use that throughout the day. Secondly, there's a hashtag or two that's been created on Twitter for the summit today. One is hashtag Fraser Summit, and the other is hashtag Fraser Hybrid Summit. So both of those can be used if you're going to throw some tweets out there today, either through your phone or through your electronic device.